when you think differently, when your brain works differently, you have to find ways to make the system work for you and be okay with that. And that self-advocacy piece is a huge part of that. To first of all, accept like, okay, I think differently and I need to do things differently. And now I have to go advocate for myself and make this happen.
Hey everyone, 2 quick announcements before we start. First, if you are on TikTok, I've been recently posting there almost daily, so follow me. And if you're not on TikTok, good for you. Second announcement, registration for our fall season of coaching and accountability groups is happening now. Your next chance to register is tomorrow, Wednesday, August 23rd at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 Eastern. If that date has passed, go to coachingrewired.com to learn more and get your name added to a fall interest list. More info at the break. Let's get on with the show. Welcome back with another episode of ADHD Rewired. Today's guest is Hannah Choi. Hannah is an executive function coach for Beyond Booksmart and the host of the podcast Focused Forward, an executive function podcast, which I will be on at some point in the future. I don't know when this one's going to come out, but that one will be out at some point in the future. She works with college-aged clients and adult clients, and she lives in Connecticut with her husband and 2 kids who are 11 and 14. Her executive function strengths are time management and cognitive flexibility, and her challenges are working memory and attention. She loves to read and watch Korean dramas, exercise, travel, and spend time outdoors.
That's me.
All right. Well, hello, Hannah.
Hi, Eric.
You focus on college stuff. So, I know before we hit record here, we were trying to figure out when this is going to come out. And we may actually want to have this one drop right around, when all the students go back to college.
Yeah.
So when you're working with college students, what is, first of all, how did you get into working with college students?
Yeah. So before I had my kids, I had just graduated from grad school with my master's in education with an emphasis in special education. And the local community college in Santa Barbara was hiring a service provider, a support person for their office. And I applied and got the job. And I fell in love with working with college kids there. It's just such an exciting time in somebody's life, and to witness that transformation from being like under your parents' wing to kind of exploring like, who am I and what do I want out of life and what kind of people do I want to surround myself with? I just fell in love with it. And I had actually just come from teaching preschool. And so I went from teaching kids who were about to head into kindergarten to kids who had just gotten out of high school. And at first I thought, I'm not qualified to do this. This is completely different. But then I realized like people are just people. And it was almost the same experience. And I'm not saying that college kids are like preschoolers, but
Sometimes though.
Yeah. Sometimes. We all are sometimes. And then I had my kids and I stayed home with them when they were little. And then my sister actually works for Beyond Booksmart, and she was coaching and was telling me, I think you would really love this. And so I got to start working with college students again, supporting them with executive function challenge. They're, in the areas that they struggle. And then I just naturally gravitated towards college students. And so most of my clients still to this day are all college kids.
So how long have you been doing this work?
I have been with Beyond Booksmart since 2017. So
okay. And am I remembering correctly that just recently diagnosed with ADHD?
Yes. I was recently diagnosed with ADHD, which has been just such a gift. I am eternally grateful. Really if I just kind of look at the path of my life over the last few years, I can really see now, looking back on it, how I was very gently leading myself towards a diagnosis and just getting so many questions that I've kind of carried around in this like really heavy bag on my back for my entire life, getting all those questions answered and spending a lot of time forgiving myself and kind of giving the earlier version of myself a big hug and telling her it's okay. So
how did you do when you were in college?
So I think college is when I really started to struggle, and when I also really started to question my ability to do things. But it never occurred to me that it was anything other than just, as someone else said, character flaws. I
Mm,
was just like, this is just how I am. I'm just bad at multiple choice. I'm just bad at getting myself going. And so now I look back at that and I'm like, oh man, it could have been a lot easier. Not, I mean, college is not easy, but I could have set myself up for a little bit more success, I think, if I had, if I had known.
yeah. No, I regularly think if I knew then what I know now,
Oh,
how
yeah.
many things would have just been so profoundly easier.
Yeah. And I catch myself thinking that oh, why didn't this? Why didn't that? And then I think, well, no, no, no. I stop myself. I say, at least you found it now. At least you asked the questions and learned so much. And so now I know. So now I get to spend the rest of my life knowing and forgiving myself for past 46 years where I
Yeah.
didn't know.
Yeah, there's that
Yeah.
and a lifetime more of therapy, and we'll be fine by the end.
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and that's been a big part of it too, is I recently, started meeting with a therapist again to really work on that forgiveness part and moving on with this new, not new identity, but clearer identity. So that's been really good too.
Mm. I'm trying to think of we have listeners of all ages, but this is a focus on college. For people who've been listening to the show for a while, they know that's when I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was in college, and my primary tool and strategy was Adderall,
Mm. Mhm.
which helped me work really, really hard and for long, long, long hours. And
Yep.
and I did okay. Like I did, my grades were decent, but I didn't have a ton of skills as far as like how to
Yeah.
manage
Yeah.
stuff. The
Yeah.
one thing that I think I just sort of had it in me, and maybe it's the social worker in me, is I was always really good at advocating for myself with my professors.
Oh, that's so great. Right there, you were helping yourself out a lot.
And so maybe we can even talk a little bit about that because I know that in talking to other college students, a lot of them say like they're like nervous to go talk to their professors. And from my
Mhm.
experience, not only do professors so greatly appreciate when students actually come see them because they actually want you to come to their office hours,
Yes.
it actually can make an impact on your grade. Because
Yep.
I always tell people that, look, like, yes, your grade's based on this rubric of scores, but there's a human being making those
Yes.
entering that in,
Yes.
right?
I'm so glad you brought that up because that is the very first thing that I always talk about with my college students is getting over the fear of getting to know their professors. And I do challenge my clients within the first 2 weeks of each semester or quarter to make sure that the teacher knows their name, to
Mm,
introduce themselves and think of something to share with them. Does it can just be like, I'm super excited about your class, or I saw that you love to read, or that you're an outdoors person. Make some kind of connection with them. I have seen it pay off in spades with so many of my clients. I had a client who got extremely ill during finals week, but because she had really, really cultivated a relationship with her professor, he was totally understanding and allowed her to take it a few days later, did not penalize her at all. And she felt really comfortable going to him and explaining what was going on. And he wasn't like, wait, who are you? Where did you come from? So, yeah, I think that self advocacy piece is absolutely key. And probably, like you said, a huge reason why you did as well as you did without a lot of systems set up is because you were able to advocate for yourself. Yeah. I really like to start there.
yeah, I think it's such an important skill, and I think
Mhm.
the other piece to that I think is really important is we understand that ADHD, a big part of what ADHD impacts is how do we do on things that we're not interested in, and
Yes.
so by through that advocacy lens, I think throughout my entire undergrad, there were very few papers that I wrote that were exactly what the assignment was. I was able to like
Mm.
kind of renegotiate the terms of the assignment to bend it towards something I was in that moment more interested in. And that
Yeah.
was I don't know how I stumbled upon that, like doing that, But, like, I look back at at college and, like, that I really think saved me through college.
Oh, I love that. That is so great. And it's such a good example of how, when you think differently, when your brain works differently, you have to find ways to make the system work for you and be okay with that. And that self advocacy piece is a huge part of that. To first of all, accept, like, okay, I think differently and I need to do things differently. And now I have to go advocate for myself and make this happen, especially for a young person, especially coming out of high school where there is so much external support given to you by your parents, your teachers. There's just the natural structure of school. And then you basically get thrown by yourself into, like, this craziness of college, and to figure that all out and to find out, like, wait a second, what is going to work for me? What isn't going to work for me? And then ask for it and make it happen. It's just like a ton of skills in there that you really do have to
Mhm.
practice.
So what are some of the like, when you think about, there's no single strategy that is, like, needed or works for everyone,
Yep,
but
that's
what are
true.
some of, like, the top things that you really help your clients with, in college?
Yeah. So I would say, the after the self-advocacy piece, the most important thing that I have seen in every single college student I have ever worked with is learning how to break big assignments up into small chunks and then map out when you're going to do it. So I use a tool I teach all of my college clients this tool, and I have only had one who didn't use it in the exact way that I showed her, but it's called an STM, and it stands for steps, time, and mapping. You basically take the whatever assignments that you have and you break them down by step, and you can get as granular as you want. You can go really, really small. Some people find that a little bit intimidating when there's like tons of steps written down, but you break them down to whatever level of granularity you feel most comfortable with, and then you map it out and you take a look at all the other classes that you're taking, because you've done the same thing with all your other assignments, and it just helps to break it out like that and to say, like, okay, I have a lot of assignments, but if I look at it day by day, I actually don't have a ton of work to do on this specific day. And so taking the time to first break them down and then schedule it all out and look at it, like, the way that we set it up is like like a little in a spreadsheet or a table, and you have the days going down the left and the classes across the top, and then you break down the assignments and plug it in. So you say, like, oh my gosh, I have 6 papers and projects coming up in the next month, but if I look at Tuesday, which is today, I can see that all I have to do is read these 2 chapters and write my introduction. And so just being able to do that can really lower your anxiety and help you realize, like, yes, it feels like a lot, but today it's actually not a lot. So that has been key for pretty much all of my students. And the one that didn't like to do that, we just would write it directly into her planner. So she still did the same action of breaking the assignments up into steps, but she didn't really feel like the need to write it all out in like a table. So she would just put it directly in her planner. And but I loved that, because she sat with me, we went through the exercise, and then she was like, this isn't going to work for me. I know it's not going to work for me. So we said, all right, what will work for you where you still get the same benefit from it? And she just succeeded so much in doing that. So
So,
that's a huge, huge thing.
but bottom line, each part of this for me, so that you have the steps, time, mapping. So what
Yep.
explain in, like, in a sentence, the steps.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So the steps are the individual tasks within a larger project that you need to do.
Okay. And the time?
So if you have to write a paper, you'd have like find your resources and then get your quotes and all that. Time is either how long you think it might take to do, which is really, really, really important. And can also, that's a skill that you really have to develop over time, is like learning, okay, writing papers takes me way longer than I think it will. But then some people with anxiety are the opposite. They feel like, "Oh my gosh, this is gonna take forever." So then they become paralyzed and don't even start. So learning how long each step takes, or at least like getting good at estimating, is really important. So
Yeah,
then
we
once you
spend a
know
lot of
that, then you
in our coaching groups, we spend a ton of time on that.
Yes, yes, yes. And also, like, the things that you, and I'm sure you know this, the things you want to do, it's kind of easier to predict the amount of time it's going to take when it's something that you want to do, unless you hyperfocus, and then you can actually lose track of time. And then it takes longer than you anticipated. But if it's something that you really don't want to do, it's harder to tell because you don't know how difficult it is going to be to get yourself to do the work. So
Mm.
I love doing something called budgeted versus actual, BVA, where you make a guess at how long something's going to take and then you time yourself and then you remember to turn off the timer. That's always my problem.
Yep. I always tell
Yeah.
people that if they remember to
Yeah.
stop the timer 50% of the time, they're killing it.
Yeah.
Like,
That's right. Yes. I know. I know. I need like a timer to remember to turn off the
yeah,
timer.
because this is something I've been working with and helping my coaching members do since I started my groups. One of the things I've really been thinking more about is because we talk about using a stopwatch, so it starts at zero. So if you think it's taking you an hour and you set the timer for an hour and it's going down and you're not done at the hour, how do you know how long it takes you? But I actually
Yep.
was thinking that it would probably be really helpful to do it both ways.
Yes.
So you know exactly
Perfect.
where you are at the hour mark.
Yes.
Like, oh, I thought it was taking an
Yes.
hour. Oh, I'm just now actually sitting down to actually get started now. So,
Right.
right.
Yes. Yes. I love that. That's such a good idea.
What's the mapping part?
Yeah. Mapping out is you map out when you're going to do all those things.
Okay.
And this is the most, once you have that information in the beginning that you've already gathered, the steps that you're going to do and a guess at how long it's going to take, then you take into consider your schedule. You say like, okay, I have class on this day, there's a party on Thursday, my parents are coming in over the weekend, and I have to do laundry. And so you consider all of those things and then you map it out. You say like, okay, I have noticed over my time here that I read really well in the mornings. And so that self-reflection piece is also really important. Take notes, gather like evidence, and say, so I'm going to schedule all of my reading in the mornings because I know it's realistic to expect myself to do it in the mornings. It is unrealistic to expect myself to do it at the end of the day. I'll fall asleep or whatever. And then say like, I really want to go to that party on Thursday and I really want to go guilt free. I want to go, I want to enjoy myself. I'm probably not going to feel that great on Friday. So that means I need to schedule out everything before that so I can really enjoy myself on Thursday. And so I really, really encourage my college students to prioritize their socializing just as much as their academics.
Mm.
It is such a huge part of college and it doesn't get enough credit. And parents probably have a heart attack when they hear me say that. But if you can schedule your academics and be true to your academic self, then you can enjoy the social part so much more. And you just find that balance that allows you to learn the academics and then learn about yourself at the same time.
That is really good. I often think about if I could have a redo on like the college experience. I wish I would have done more social stuff. It's like, 'cause I think for
Yeah.
me, after I got diagnosed, I'm like, oh, I can get good grades. And I spent way more time just trying to keep the grades up and,
Yeah.
at
Yeah. I
sacrificing the
know.
social piece.
Yep. And that's always one of the first things I talk about the first time that I meet with a college student, with a new client, is I talk about how important that is and how finding that balance is key to having a
Yeah.
successful college experience both ways, right?
Yeah.
You don't want your academics to suffer, but you also really, it's like a really safe space to grow as a person and to learn about what kind of people you want in your life
Yeah.
and who you are and who you want to be. And you just can learn so many social skills and independence and self-advocacy. And if there isn't that balance and you're really missing out on a lot of opportunities to find that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I want to take a quick break. When we come back, let's just continue this conversation. So we will be
Yeah.
right back. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from ADHD Rewired's award-winning online coaching and accountability groups. Learn more at coachingrewired.com. Are you tired of being overwhelmed, Do you feel like your ADHD holds you back from achieving your goals? How would your life be transformed if you could create an actionable plan that was tailored towards your ADHD and to make your calendar work for you, all while learning alongside other people with ADHD who understand the challenges you face? If you're ready to go from listening to ADHD Rewired to getting your ADHD rewired, then go to coachingrewired.com to add your name to our interest list and start your pre-registration process so you can join us for our next fall registration event happening tomorrow, August 23rd at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. If you are not listening to this on August 22nd, go to the website, coachingrewired.com, to see when your next chance is to register. Registration is by invitation only. So to get your invitation, go to coachingrewired.com to get your name added to our interest list and watch your email for instructions. And if you have a question or two that you would like to ask, write them down and add them to your calendar so you can bring them with you for tomorrow. Discover what our coaching groups are all about. Get your questions answered and add your name to our fall interest list by going to coachingrewired.com. Get curious, dream big, and come grow with us. That's at coachingrewired.com. All right, we are back with Hannah Choi from Beyond Booksmart. So, we were talking strategies, and I want to continue that conversation about strategies. It's funny. Let's see, I'm 42. So it's been a while since I was in my undergrad.
Yes.
I about 2 years, it's actually towards the end of COVID, I went back to my alma mater at Bradley University for the first time since graduating. I'm gonna tell you, I was like, "Oh my god, did I look that young?" Because I thought like we were all so old when we were in college, and I'm like, these are all kids. Like
We
they're
were
kids.
babies.
I'm like, "Oh my god." And I just wanna, go back there and have that experience all over again.
Oh, I know,
Oh,
right?
I have dreams about it. I really do. I'm like, "Can I actually go back full time and, be like a traditional college student?" Like, that would be
Yeah, right.
amazing.
Can I do that? They'd be like, "Why is that old guy in school with us?"
Uh-huh. Like, "Oh, I got group projects on paired with the old guy." Oh, god.
But then they would realize, oh, it's actually good to be paired with the old guy because he really takes it seriously.
Oh, man. But, college was a great experience.
Mhm.
But it was hard because, I was kinda just
Yeah.
figuring this stuff out as I went, and my ADHD
Yeah.
wasn't super well managed, and, so
Yeah.
what are some of the other things that are really important for college students to consider and
Mm.
with the work that you've
Yeah.
been doing with students?
So the other thing that I really, 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 really encourage all of my clients to work on is emotional regulation. And the reason for that is because if our emotions are in control of us, in our brain, we can't access our executive function skills. So when our emotions take over, the blood actually gets drawn from our prefrontal cortex into the emotional part of our brain. And it is harder to plan, prioritize, advocate for ourselves, pay attention, organize, all the things. And so I really encourage my clients to work on their nutrition, their exercise, just their emotional well being. Like, do they have good strategies for when they are starting to feel like, okay, my emotions are getting the better of me right now? Do they have, those regulating activities that they know will help them? Whether it's like breathing or exercise, like exercise is huge.
Mhm.
Sleep is massive. So all of my clients, I have sleep, nutrition, and exercise. I have my check-ins every time we meet, or maybe not every time, but most times we meet, I always check in. Tell me about your sleep. Tell me about how you're eating. Tell me about your exercise. And when those things are being taken care of, it is a billion times easier to regulate our emotions, which means it is a billion times easier to access our executive function skills, which just makes everything easier. And I feel like sleep, nutrition, and exercise don't get enough attention, or they get attention, but people just end up not taking it as seriously as they probably should. And so that is a big part of my coaching. And it doesn't necessarily directly have to do with executive function skills, but it actually really does. So we build in strategies like, okay, how can we make it so that you are getting more sleep? How can we make it so you don't forget to eat? And then it's time to eat and, the dining hall is closed or you don't have a good healthy food option. Or how do you get yourself up to exercise when you really don't want to? So a lot of that motivation piece comes in. That's also really important.
I'm just trying to imagine my, like, 19 and 20-year-old self, sitting
Right.
sitting down with you if,
Right.
being asked about sleep, nutrition, and exercise. I think my
I
response
know.
would be, "So do you have any other questions?"
Uh-huh, uh-huh, and you know what? At first, I noticed that. At first, I noticed that they, like, humor me, and maybe they're continuing to humor me, but I do know that it does benefit them to just talk about it, to keep it top of mind. I have to admit, I feel like a total dork asking them about it, but I know the brain is so important, and that is how we keep our brain healthy. So, I
That's
bring it up
true.
every
It's
time
No, it's
regardless of how
true.
dorky I sound.
It's true. Oh, well, I part of how I made it through college is like, the number of all-nighters I pulled, like, working on
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah.
What was one of my strategies, not necessarily one of the, healthiest strategies.
No, but
Um,
it happens. Yeah. Yep.
and, I think too, like, I know if, like, right now, if I were to pull an all-nighter, it would probably affect me for, like, weeks.
Mhm.
Right? Where when I was in
Yeah.
college, it was like, like, and maybe I was just so chronically sleep deprived that I didn't realize how much it
Yeah.
impacted me, which is probably more
Yeah.
likely.
Yes.
Because my like, all through college, my sleep was just awful, awful, awful.
Yeah.
And, like, me,
Yeah.
I
Yep.
almost pulled an all weeker because I had a big paper due that literally, like, crashed, like, when I sent it to
No.
computer in my room. I was working at the library because I didn't have my library card, so I couldn't print it out there. And I opened up the file. It was just those. Remember those,
Mm.
like, ASCII texts, like the little, like, squares that,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
ran back to the library hoping that it was somehow still there, and it was gone. And it was, at the
Yeah.
time, it was like the longest paper had ever written. It was a 10-page
Oh,
paper,
jeez, you
and
poor thing. Oh my gosh.
oh, so it was, yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Well, something that I do always talk about is how 2 things. Like, 1, when I ask them about their sleep, nutrition, and exercise, it is absolutely without any judgment. And I do think that they feel comfortable telling me, like, "Nope, didn't get any this week." And then I'm like, "All right, let's try again next week." And when I ask about it, there's no expectation that they have to meet any certain sort of level. Like, I'm just, like I said, just trying to keep it top of mind. And the other thing is, like, yeah, sometimes all-nighters happen. It just is the nature of college. It just happens. Or all weekers sometimes. Hopefully now with like Google Docs and constant saving,
Yeah.
nobody will ever
Oh my
experience
god.
what you experienced.
I don't know if you ever had this issue, but, like, file naming, protocol is like the so and so paper, new version, newer version, the
Newer version,
newest,
final
or
version,
it's like,
second final
oh my
version.
god. Um, okay, so I'm also curious. I was just thinking back to when I went to go visit my alma mater.
Yeah.
I was
Mhm.
like the non-frat guy that was in a fraternity. Like, so I went
Okay.
and saw my old fraternity house. Like, I walk in and there's, like, kids smoking bongs, and I'm like, like, in a sense, really grateful that it was not legal when I was a college student,
Yeah.
because, like, I probably would have failed out real fast. Because there's no way I would have had, like, just the maturity to, it's like, oh,
Right.
it's legal and
Self-control.
my parents aren't
Yeah.
around. It's like, let's just get
Yeah.
high all the time, everywhere. It doesn't matter because it's legal, right?
Right.
Are you seeing that, like, in your practice?
I haven't. And it is either that they are not bringing it up, but I haven't. My impression is that people drink a lot more than smoke, but it also may be that the states in which my clients are students, it's maybe has like a different
Mm.
level of legality. So yeah, but I do see that. I mean, I don't think I have a single client that hasn't shared with me that they've had alcohol, but nobody has talked about pot.
Do you ask or,
No, I mean, I don't ask. Maybe I should start asking.
especially if you're having clients that have like major work memory issues, that might be a good
Yeah.
idea to like, hey, so how much pot you smoking these days?
Yeah.
Because that might not be helping your ADHD.
Yeah. It's so funny because when I think back to high school, I remember going off to college and my boyfriend in high school was like, "Hey, do you wanna bring some pot with you?" And I was like, "I'm not gonna need to bring any with me. Everybody's gonna have some." And then the people that I fell in with, like one guy was like, "Oh, I was at a party once when people were smoking." And so I was like, "Oh, okay." So I don't know, I just, like, didn't smoke in college.
Yeah, I just wonder how that's impacting,
Yeah,
college
yeah,
students now
yeah.
with ADHD. On the same kind of lines, do you talk about how students manage their medication?
Yeah, that's a bit that comes up a lot. And there are so many executive function skills that are involved with managing ADHD medication and other meds. A lot of my clients are often on multiple medications. And yeah, and especially with the shortage, that is something that we do work on, like making sure that we're being very proactive and not reactive when it comes to obtaining meds. Yeah, that is, and it is just so funny to me that ADHD is a brain disorder that causes you to have challenges with executive function skills. And those executive function skills are exactly what you need to make sure that you get your meds.
Uh-huh.
So, yes.
It's I yes, I've been on my soapbox many times on this topic,
Yeah.
and I think it's
Yeah.
something that, like, when I was, when I was in college, it was everyone was like, "Oh, you've had her all?" Like, "Oh, I'll buy this from you." It's like, and I was like, "Nah,"
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
and
They don't
and then
understand.
when, we're 18, 19, 20 years old, like, we could think about a week ahead of time, and that's about as far
Yeah,
as our
that's
brain.
about it.
Yeah, right? And
Yeah.
so, like, thinking about this now, I always urge, students who are in college have ADHD, I'm like, "One, like, not that you need to be ashamed of having ADHD, but I would highly suggest not sharing with too many people that you have ADHD,
Yeah.
because the next question is gonna be, 'Can I buy your
Yep.
Adderall?'" Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
And you're
and
like, "I
all
need it. You need it."
Right, and all of that makes it harder for the rest of us because all these rules and laws
Yeah.
that are put in place,
Right.
because of
Mhm.
medication diversion,
Right.
right?
Yep.
And so, yeah,
Yep.
just and I would definitely, if you're going to college, get yourself a good lockbox. That I would
Yeah.
say a biometric lockbox, 'cause I think that's more ADHD friendly because it's just you
Mhm.
put your finger on
Smart.
it and it's open,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
Very smart.
put and keep your meds in there because, like, I've known people who have
Mhm.
had a whole month of meds stolen. Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and
Wow.
you don't want it to be having to think about your friends, like, "All right, which one of my friends, like,
Yeah,
stole
which
this?"
one?
Or,
Right. Right.
so yeah.
And also dealing with the stress of not having your meds and finishing those 2 essays that you have due
Oh my god.
without medication.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I don't have any answers due, and that just made me kinda panic. Uh, oh my gosh. Alright, what about let's talk about some other accommodations here. So what are some other, like, do you think important accommodations
Yeah,
that students can ask
that's
for?
that you use the word accommodations is so great. So the other thing that I really, really, really encourage all of my clients to do if they have a diagnosis, or if they're curious, is to go to the Office for Students with Disabilities. Go there. And even if you don't think you're going to use any of the accommodations that you qualify for, go there, get connected, make sure they have your paperwork, make sure that you know where they are, you know how to make an appointment, because it may be that you don't need any accommodations your freshman year. Maybe you don't even need them sophomore year. But as school gets more and more difficult, I do find that students tend to like having extended time on tests or being able to take the tests outside of the classroom or not having to take notes. You get a note taker or support getting books on audio books. I have a client, she doesn't have ADHD, but she has anxiety and dyslexia, and so she uses their support to get more of the books on audio tape without having to pay for it. So I really, 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 really encourage, even like I said, even if you think you're not going to use the accommodations, just go at the beginning of the semester. And the first 2 weeks, when you've met your professor, make an appointment for that office and just get connected. because you never know. And you
Yeah.
definitely don't want to head in there midterms or finals being like, help, I need help, because it's going to be mobbed in there and it's just going to be a stressful experience. It's not going to be something that's really helpful for you. So,
Now, one of the
yeah.
accommodations that I had in college was I was able to get extended time on exams, but I
Yes.
also didn't like what I something I kind of figured out early on. My freshman or sophomore year, I would take the exams in like the testing center. I didn't
Mhm.
like that because I wanted to be able to
Ah,
ask the professor a question if I was not
yes.
because
That
like
is one drawback.
because I can overthink questions, I mean, I can
Mhm.
write essays on the overthinking of questions,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and so I wanted to be able to, like, ask even if he's not gonna really give me anything helpful, like, I also read body language really well. It just helps me kinda see if I'm on the right track, like, if I'm asking a question,
Yeah.
I'm sort of sharing, "Alright, this is what I understand." So trying to communicate that, like, I understand this
Mhm.
information. I'm just trying to
Mhm.
understand what you're wanting on this, and so
Right.
one of the things that I advocated for with my professors was, can I take the exam in class, maybe hold the last like 1 or 2 pages? So if you don't want me to see them or be able to, in case I need to then continue it after the class is
Yes.
over. And that was something that
Yes.
worked really, really well for me.
Yeah, and that's where that self-advocacy piece comes in. If it's midterms and you go up to your teacher and you say, "Hey, I have ADHD and I need extended time on this test. Can you hold 2 papers for me and then I'll finish it later?" They're gonna be like, "Wait, who are you and why would I do this for you?" But if you've developed that relationship with them, if they know going into it that this is something that you might take advantage of. And the other thing is like if you have an accommodating teacher who is willing to do that for you, like that's awesome. Not all professors are that accommodating. So it's really nice to have the staff at the disability services office on your side. If they can step in and help you advocate and find some kind of solution that works for the professor and for you.
I know of
So,
scenarios even where instead of taking the traditional exam, that a student can go in and literally just have a one-on-one conversation with the professor. That's literally the exam's there, but they're having conversations about each question that it's asking, and
yes,
so you can actually
yes,
demonstrate your knowledge. There's so, like, and I
yes,
think that's one of
yes,
the things I hope that people listening to this really are hearing is that like think outside the box. Because I mean, there's no
absolutely.
place on this
Yes.
planet where more outside of the box thinking is welcomed than a college campus, right? Like,
Exactly.
it,
And the disability services office. I mean, they are there to solve creative problems. Like that is what they're there for. Yes. Yes. It's so important. And as a person with ADHD, especially if you've just been diagnosed as a college student, because that does happen. A lot of kids like don't necessarily struggle and like you didn't necessarily struggle in high school and then college hits and you're like, what the heck is
oh,
happening here?
I didn't say I wasn't struggling in high school. It was just I didn't know why I was
But
struggling.
it hit harder in college,
Yes,
right?
very hard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So we had a lot of kids who would come in and say like, "Hey, I was doing okay in high school. I think something's going on. I want to get tested." And so thinking creatively, thinking outside of the box or figuring out how to fit your round peg in that square hole is really a good thing to start
Mm,
practicing in the
yes,
safe environment of college.
absolutely. So we do need to take one more really quick break. When we come back, I want to share with listeners I think one of the most important things, kind of a warning about due dates. So I'm not going to say anything more about that. You have to come back after the break. We'll be right back. Hey there, ADHD Rewired listeners. It's time for another ad for a product that doesn't actually exist. Hey there, brilliant minds. Are you tired of those pesky big ideas getting tangled up like a bowl of spaghetti in your brain? Do your groundbreaking thoughts slip away faster than a frisbee in a windstorm? Well, hold on to your thinking caps because we've got just the solution for you. Introducing Idea Streaminator 3000. With the Idea Streaminator 3000, your genius ideas will flow smoother than your favorite fish jam. That's PH fish, not fish jam, because that would be gross. No more frustrating moments of losing that perfect concept. Our patented brain flow technology channels all of those 20 big connections into one cohesive, brilliant thought. But wait, there's more. For our pickleball playing podcast hosting friends, We've even got a special ping pong mode. That's right, your ideas will bounce back and forth until they are perfectly formed and ready to serve. The Idea Streaminator 3000 is perfect for ADHD superstars who juggle big ideas all day long, entrepreneurs looking to make their next big splash, lefty politicians drafting their next groundbreaking policy, anyone who has ever had an idea slip away at the worst moment. Order now, and we'll even throw in a free idea notebook that comes with a real physical pen. You remember those? So don't let your brilliant thoughts drift away like a dream. Grab the Idea Streaminator 3000 and make those connections count. Because here at Idea Central, we believe your brain is a treasure trove and no idea should ever be left behind. The Idea Streaminator 3000 does not actually channel brainwaves or actually exist, but if it did, it might look really cool on your desk. And while this isn't real, the support and strategies and community that you can get right here at ADHD Rewired are real. Do you have a creative idea you've been wanting to start? Would you like someone to do laundry with? What about having company while you study? If you think you would benefit from real-time accountability working alongside other adults with ADHD who are also working on things they want to get done, then join our Adult Study Hall membership community at adultstudyhall.com. And if you love what we're doing, become a patron by going to ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. We have perks starting at just $5 a month where you can get this show uninterrupted, where the ads are at the very end, because we don't want you to miss out on what's happening here at ADHD Rewired. Patrons at $25 a month can join us for our patron-only monthly coaching call every fourth Tuesday of the month. That means if you are listening to this on the day it came out, our next monthly coaching call is today. That's today, August 22nd at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Then if you want to get some tips, tricks, and solutions to your ADHD-related questions, you can join me and the ADHD Rewire team every second Tuesday of the month for our monthly live Q&A. You can go to ADHDrewired.com/events to register so you can join us live on Zoom. We've been inviting special guest panelists, so find out who we're going to have this time. Find everything ADHD Rewired at ADHDrewired.com. And thanks for listening. All right, so we are back with Hannah Choi. And I said right before the break that I wanted to share kind of a warning about due dates.
Ooh, I'm so curious.
So I think it was my junior year of college, and I had to have surgery, and I need one of my parathyroid glands removed. Towards the end of my first semester, I was going to have the surgery in between semesters. Towards the end of my first semester, I was just kind of falling apart emotionally, like everything. I was just not in a great place. So I ended up getting incompletes for my classes, for my incomplete work. So I went back to school second semester, and I wasn't enrolled because I had to still finish all my coursework from first semester. So I had this paper that the due date that I was given was whenever you get it done. If you are ever given that kind of due date, insist that your professor give you some kind. It doesn't matter if it's arbitrary, but they need to hold you to it. Because I'm going to tell you what I did with that. Whenever you get it, whenever you turn it in, you can turn it in. So this is in one of my social work courses. So it's a course that was, I enjoyed, and it was intellectually very stimulating. This was just a 3-page paper.
Oh, no.
So literally I worked on this paper for 8 hours a day for an entire semester. I swear, I need to I just started EMDR therapy, and I think I should probably bring this up in my therapy, because I think I legit have writing trauma from this.
Yeah, process some of that.
Because it's so anytime I have to write something, I immediately think about that.
Wow.
So so that was where I learned the lesson: don't ever accept a due date of whenever you can get to it.
Give me something. So I had a client who was on medical leave for anxiety and depression. And she, in order to go back to school, she had to complete some essays. And that was one of the problems with her getting motivated, was there was no due date. They did not tell her when. So we had to create that. We had to create a due date. But creating that due date for yourself is not really as effective. Even having your coach create it for you is not as effective as the actual professor creating it for you. So, yes, it's so true.
Because there needs to be some real consequence to it, right? I mean, it needs
Yeah,
to impact
right.
something for real.
Yeah, and also you need that anchor. You need something to pull yourself back to, like, the light at the end of the tunnel or something to grab onto to pull. So, yeah,
How
yeah.
important do you think, like, your course load and even just the way you design your schedule is for college students?
In my experience, I have noticed that my students who have more work do better. The students who take less classes or are taking like a light load academically, like they'll have the same number of units, but the classes themselves aren't that difficult. I notice they have a more difficult time getting through the semester. And they notice when that difficult semester that was actually an easier semester is followed by a more academically rigorous semester, they notice like, "Hey, I'm doing much better." I had a client, I worked with him for many years, and, throughout college, he got his undergrad in 5 years, and the reason it took him 5 years because every semester he had ADHD. He would either drop or not pass a class. His last semester there, he just needed to be done. He took 19 units,
My gosh.
5 classes. And that was the first semester he passed all of his classes. I think he even got all A's and B's. And he said it was because, like, once he got going, that inertia, like, helped him so much. And the busier he was, the better he did. And I really, really, really have seen that, like, clear across the board.
Huh. I
So,
find that
I'm
really
sure that
interesting.
doesn't apply to everybody. I'm sure that doesn't apply to everybody, but in my experience, that is what I've seen.
I find that really interesting that you've seen that sort of across the board. Because my
Mhm.
5-year plan in my undergrad, so my freshman year, says the I got diagnosed after my freshman year. I had 15 hours each semester, and I did awful. Like, I did bad the
Mm.
first semester and worse the second semester. But doing worse the second semester was the semester of actually trying. So, like,
Oh.
right, yeah, that's,
Oh,
um,
poor
so
thing.
determined, I was like, I don't think I can do that. Like, so from that point
Yeah,
on, I had only taken 4 classes a semester, and I
yeah.
felt like that was, like, my max. Like,
Yep,
I really,
yep,
like, my parents, like, kept pushing me to do, to add 1 more to each semester, and I couldn't do it because I felt like I was doing everything I could. I was trying to stay on top of everything, and I still felt I was, like, always a little bit
yeah,
behind.
yeah,
So what I
yeah,
did to sort of make up for it, so I wasn't on, like, the 9-year plan, I always did the summer school, and I always did, winter
yeah.
interims, right? So
Smart.
it's,
Yeah,
a short truncated period of time where you get
yep,
those credits. And then also, like,
yeah.
the courses that you like, the more of the gen ed type courses that, tend to be harder, doing those at
Yes.
community college.
Yes, hugely important. Those community colleges don't get enough attention, in my opinion. Such a great option. It's way cheaper,
Mhm.
and usually the classes are smaller, and you have like a more intimate experience in the class. I'm a huge, huge, huge proponent of doing exactly that. It's such a good idea.
Yeah, especially those prerequisite classes that, like, you have to
Yeah,
take, especially if you
yeah.
don't have much of an interest in it, like, just make it easy for
Mhm.
yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
and it's still a great education. You're still getting the solid foundation in whatever the topic is. I think you're right. I think it does vary from student to student. And I guess I'm not saying that students need to take 5 classes. I just encourage students not to be afraid to take 5 or to take 4 if they feel like they can only handle 3. But then there's also so many other things to take into consideration, other diagnoses, family situations, I mean, a lot of kids, if they're working, a lot of college students are working, or if they have like medical challenges or, whatever load people are carrying, that is something to really consider. But it has surprised me, or how much they surprise themselves, I should say, by doing better when they have more going on.
And one final question for you, because we are running out of time here.
Yeah.
So, I imagine you probably have had students, come to you, they're studying in a particular field. It's maybe a field that their maybe parents have urged them to go into. whether they realize it or not, they're actually not that interested in this field.
Yeah.
How do
Yeah.
you navigate, because interest is such a critical
It's
part
so
of
important.
ADHD,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How do you help
Yep.
students with that?
Yeah, and that really does come back to that self-advocacy and also reflection, self-reflection. Why am I doing this? Why am I taking these classes? Why am I struggling? And a lot of times, you're struggling because it's you're doing what someone else's expectations. You're trying to meet someone else's expectations, and taking the time to really ask those difficult questions. And then if you do come to the conclusion that maybe this isn't the major for me, to say to the people in your life, I've done a lot of thinking about this and I've asked the questions and I've talked to professors and I've, done the research. It is not just like off the cuff decision. Say, like I am changing direction and I'm actually going to do something else. And I think it really does come down to finding that confidence through that self advocacy and through that self reflection to admit to yourself, I was doing this for someone else's expectations. I don't necessarily fit into that. I need to find something that I'm really, really, really jazzed about.
Mm.
I mean, that's the life of someone with ADHD is figuring that out and recognizing that. And it does make things easier if you go with the thing that you're interested in and you go with your talent, whatever it is, whatever the thing is that make you enjoy it more and stick with it
Yeah.
more. But it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, they don't just hand out degrees, so I think for
No.
any student who is ADHD, or any other kind of invisible disability, like
Mhm.
if you're doing college, just know that you're doing something that most people don't even do. So I think it's a really
Yep.
important to acknowledge that and to give yourself some credit for
Yeah.
doing a really
And
hard
it's
thing.
Yep, it's really hard. It's really, really hard. And don't be afraid to ask for help and don't be afraid to say, I can't do this on my own. And it is okay. It is okay to ask for help. It's really important to ask for help. And I guarantee you, everybody out there that is doing a good job or what you think is doing a good job, they have asked for help in some way or another. Nobody is doing things on their own,
Mm. Yeah,
even if they
true.
pretend they are.
I agree. No arguments here. Hannah Choi, website beyondbooksmart.com. Anything, last thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, listen to Focus Forward, my podcast. You can find us on any podcast platform. We cover all sorts of topics because executive function skills impact all areas of our lives. That's why they call them execute because we use them to execute our day, executive function. And I would love for your listeners to come check it out.
All right, check out her podcast and focus forward. And thank you so much for spending the time here. This was great.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, and thanks so much for asking me on so I could be on this side of the mic. It's super fun.
It is always fun to be on the other side when you're used to being
So
on this
fun.
side. All
Yeah.
right, Anna, thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric.
This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is ADHDrewired.com. You can find time-stamped summaries and additional resources for each episode. Apply to join our free and secret Facebook community. Learn more about our award-winning intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. Join the Adult Study Hall virtual co-working membership community. Find all the other podcasts on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. Sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content that you won't hear anywhere else. And use the search tool to find episodes on specific topics. You can do all of this at ADHDrewired.com. While you're there, click on the Patreon button. If you are a regular listener, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to you, the listener, but it's not free to produce. Plus, patrons get cool perks like ad-free episodes and access to recordings of coaching calls, and $25 a month patrons can join me once a month for a group coaching call. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHD Rewired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. Subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube to see selective interviews and other videos I've made. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends, family, your therapists, your coaches, doctors, siblings, parents. And if you, your coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at the website, ADHDrewired.com. If you're a member of CHAD, ADA, or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this show and all the shows on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. And if you really loved this particular episode, please hit share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I do count on you to help spread this message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other app that supports reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at Audible by going to audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. Here is my list of must-listen-to audiobooks updated July 2021. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Attached by Amir Levin and Rachel Heller. Atomic Habits by James Clear. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson. The Coaching Habit by Michael Stainer. The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Rest by Alex Sujong Kim Pang. The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Make It Stick. The Science of Successful Learning by Peter Brown. The Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. I always recommend to my coaches and admin that they read that book. The One Thing by Gary Keller, a required reading for all of our coaching group members. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Baden. The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. And if you're looking for something a little bit more magical, I have fallen in love with the Harry Potter series, and the narrator, Jim Dale, is amazing. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus, all of her stuff is great, starting with Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, and The Power of Vulnerability. And if you're an entrepreneur or leader, be sure to check out her book, Dare to Lead. Do you have something that you would like to share? Click on the podcast tab at ADHD Rewired. Click the button to be a guest at the top of the page and schedule a 15-minute interview. This is Eric Tivers, reminding you to keep learning, growing, and connecting. Self-care is not selfish. No matter what you get done or don't get done, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things. And we don't need to do them in the hardest way possible. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.